My name is Victor Tiffany. I'm with Revolt Against Plutocracy, the organization advocating for the legalization of democratic order in the United States through comprehensive campaign finance reform. This is a presentation that's going to explain two things. It has two parts. First, why only Bernie Sanders can defeat Donald Trump, his natural and build up leverage that I will explain using polling. The second part will explain how Bernie Sanders can defeat Donald Trump, the coalition that he can put together and no other candidate has the ability to put together. So I'm going to begin here sharing my computer screen like this. And it begins with this opinion piece we put into Newsweek. Our very last sentence here says, unless there is a recession, Bernie or bust is a foregone conclusion. In other words, unless unemployment starts going up, if Bernie Sanders is not the nominee, Donald Trump will be reelected. So let me go back to 2016 and show some polling here that explains exactly how we know this. These are 4,226 Bernie supporters polled in the aftermath of the 2016 election. You can see about 78% of Berners voted for Hillary Clinton in the general election. 12% down here voted for Trump. These are not Bernie or busters. These are Bernie or Trump voters who, for a variety of reasons, voted for Donald Trump instead of Hillary Clinton. These 8% over here voted for another candidate. This is Bernie or bust. These are the people who voted mostly for Jill Stein. These non-voters here probably thought they were Bernie or busters because the corporate media kept saying or bust meant staying home, but it never did. So I just want to slide down here and take a look at something. This shows the 2016 results in these three states of these Bernie or Trumpers. You can see these estimated numbers of these Bernie or Trumpers were more than the Trump margin of victory. They were responsible for Hillary Clinton's defeat in 20. No one claimed it. There's no organization behind it. There's no Bernie or Trump website. They just decided to vote for Trump, and that was the reason Hillary Clinton lost. Now, unfortunately, there we go. This back here, we come down here for a second and click on this. I want to show that it's not unusual for voters to cross over like that. This is from 2008. These are 15% of voters voted for Hillary in the primaries, Hillary Clinton primaries. This 25% of them voted for McCain. This is strange. But it wasn't enough to defeat Obama because economic conditions were bad. Unemployment was on the rise. The economy was in a free-for-all. We were at the front end of the Great Recession. So I just wanted to make that point. Now, what about, that was then. That's the polling from 2017 as a result of the 2016 election. What about this year? This is a poll conducted by Emerson College. We can get it up here. Showing, where are we? Right here. 26% of those who support Sanders in the primaries, this thing will hold still, will support Trump over Elizabeth Warren. 26%. Right, that was about plus minus margin of error of 10%. That's only about 103 burners in this particular poll. Business Insider had a poll 2 weeks ago. 2/3 of Bernie Sanders supporters would support Elizabeth Warren. That's called manufacturing confusion. The headline should have been 1/3 of Bernie supporters will not support Elizabeth Warren if she's the nominee. So we still have a good number of Bernie supporters who will not support the Democratic Party nominee. You got animosity toward Biden is even more than Warren. Look at these numbers down here. But these numbers here are the ones I want to get to here in the second half. 43% of the people responding to this poll think Sanders would lose to Trump because they don't have the information we have about what we call the peak of the poor. I will come back to those momentarily. Another poll, again, Emerson College, just last week, showing 61% of Bernie supporters, Sanders supporters, 61%, they were likely to support the Democratic Party nominee. 39% are not likely or unwilling to support the Democratic Party nominee. Again, this Bernie or bust effect, Bernie or Trump effect, the leverage, both of those combined toward Bernie Sanders leverage this time around. If you don't support Bernie Sanders, you will lose. That's what the leverage indicates. We have a reload going on here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show what I wanted to show, which is a poll we conducted in September of this year. It's going up to the top of the page. I'm not going to take the time to redo that. Let me just go after these numbers, these percentages, right? So I'm making up numbers here. This 10 million, let's say from 2016, who backed Bernie Sanders, 22% of them, the polls that we showed, might have been about 2.2 million voters. He has currently less people supporting him in the primaries, down to about 21% of Democrats already willing to support Bernie currently in the primaries. So if we have, say, fewer Bernie supporters this time around, but a higher percentage of them, that doesn't mean more people. That means possibly fewer people, maybe about the same number of people. But let's keep in mind, it was only 12% last time. That was enough to defeat Hillary Clinton. So this idea that it might be about the same number as last time should be enough to help everybody, every Democrat, understand Bernie's support, this massive 61% who will back the nominee, but the 39% who may not or will not. As I said, all candidates have a certain amount of leverage. This is 93% of Buttigieg's supporters will back the nominee. That means 7% will probably vote Republican. This is a normal thing. 80% Warren supporters. That means 20% will vote for a Republican or third party or stay home. 23% of Biden supporters, right, will stay home, not vote. But Bernie has the largest amount of leverage, this 61% who will. So let's talk about when we said in the Newsweek piece, barring a recession, right? Remember, unless there's a recession, Bernie or bust is a foregone conclusion. The reason is because in post-war period, incumbent presidents have run for re-election 10 times, 7 winning, 3 losing. Winners all had strong job markets going for them. The one exception was unemployment around 7.5% when Reagan ran for re-election in '84, but that was down from the recession high of 11%. So the numbers were moving in the right direction. Right now, we have very low unemployment. So what's going to do better in voters' minds than low unemployment? How about full employment, a federal job guarantee? This is what Bernie will bring to the table. Again, no other Democrat will. The Green New Deal includes a federal job guarantee. So all these poor people and poorly educated people and people working 2 or 3 jobs, people struggling to get by, will have, under Bernie, an opportunity to work full-time with decent benefits and decent livable wage. That's better than low unemployment. That's the one thing that can actually defeat Donald Trump. But there's more. There is information, a study published in 2018 by Thomas Piketty, French political economist Thomas Piketty, published a study called, if I can find it here, Brownham Left versus Merchant Right in 2018. We didn't have this information available in 2016. But what we now know, based on this study, and I'm going to put all these links in the description below this, so you can go read this article yourself. You can read all these articles yourself and verify what I'm claiming here. But what this study shows is that poor people and poorly educated people will not vote at all. They stay home. These are millions of voters who will not vote unless, it's right here, an egalitarian international platform. That's Bernie Sanders. Some people might say it's Elizabeth Warren, but Bernie Sanders has something Warren doesn't have: the ability to find these poor and poorly educated voters. What am I talking about? First of all, these poor and poorly educated voters who didn't vote, in 2016, that was 100 million people. This is something else that Bernie can bring to the table. He will, because they will, according to Piketty, they will support, these voters will support somebody like Bernie Sanders, a social democrat, which is the European term for democratic socialist. In other words, these people will come into Bernie's winning coalition not in spite of the fact that Bernie is a democratic socialist, but because he's a democratic socialist. He will bring these people into his winning coalition. How will they find these people? Bernie has 1 million volunteers working for his campaign, going door to door, canvassing, making phone calls, finding people who may not have voted in 2016, may not want to vote. Some of these people, no doubt, will not vote ever again. But Bernie's got the 1 million volunteer army that can find these people, get them to register to vote, explain Bernie's platform of higher minimum wage, a livable wage, of free education. Poorly educated people will come out and support someone like Bernie Sanders because he's offering free college education and free health care, Medicare for all. That's important to poor people. They don't have Medicare at all. They don't have health care insurance. This will matter to them in ways that other candidates won't. So he's got these people finding the poor people. Bernie has these volunteers finding them, and he has something else that no other candidate has. Bernie has his own voter database this time. He's not relying on the DNC voter base. Remember, that was a problem last time around. He has what's called the Burn app. It's an application that these volunteers put on their phones when they're calling voters on this database or going door to door looking for people, finding out who they vote for. They has information on this Burn app that will help them find these voters, make sure these voters are registered to vote, and remind them to come out and vote for the primaries, and if he wins the primary, the general election. And if he doesn't win the primary, no other candidate has the ability to bring out these voters. Bernie's winning coalition is the Piketty poor that his army will find, register, and remind to get out and vote, possibly even helping them get to the polls on election day. The blue, no matter who Democrats. Again, all candidates have a certain amount of leverage. Buttigieg supporters, 7%, will probably vote for Republican, but that's better than the large numbers of Bernie supporters who voted Republican last time and will probably do so again next time if Bernie's not the nominee. He's also got these Bernier busters, these Bernier Trumpers. His natural leverage will come in behind him. And finally, swing voters. Most of them indicate they're going to vote for Bernie. That's what polling is indicating now. Because who's their choice? Donald Trump, right? So he has no interest in dealing with climate change. And if we don't deal with climate change, we're facing human extinction. There's enough independent voters who are aware of the need to address this existential crisis the human race faces to come out and support somebody with a Green New Deal, someone like Bernie Sanders. So he can defeat Trump. There's no question about that. Whether he will or not, there's a lot of propaganda that comes into play. But one thing that's certain, no other candidate can. Bernie can. We're not guaranteeing he will. What we're guaranteeing is any other Democrat will be defeated by Donald Trump. That's the big key point of this message. Thank you for listening.